What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken down each story in the timeline so you can jump around as you see fit. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button, and if you have not already, subscribe to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. Western Digital has addressed a critical vulnerability tracked as CVE 2021-44142 that could have allowed attackers to gain remote code execution with root privileges on unpatched MyCloud OS 5 devices. The CVE 2021-44142 flaw affects the following devices: MyCloud PR2100, MyCloud PR4100, MyCloud EX4100, MyCloud EX2 Ultra, MyCloud Mirror Gen 2, MyCloud DL2100, MyCloud DL4100, MyCloud EX2100, MyCloud, and WD Cloud. The CVE 2021-44142 vulnerability is a Samba out-of-bounds heap read and write that impacts the VFS Fruit VFS module when parsing EA metadata when opening files in SMBD. This VFS module is part of the Samba suite and provides enhanced compatibility with Apple SMB clients and interoperability with a NetaTalk 3 AFP file server. The flaw affects all versions of Samba prior to 4.13.17. An attacker can trigger this vulnerability without user interaction. The vulnerability was reported by the security researcher Orang Tsai from DevCore. Well, this specific flaw exists within the parsing of extended attributes metadata when opening a file in SMBD. This vulnerability can be exploited by unauthenticated users if they are allowed write access to file extended attributes, reads the advisory published by Western Digital. This vulnerability was addressed by removing the Fruit VFS module from the list of configured VFS objects and by changing EA support configurations. I'm not sure why it says this here and why it said it before, but the story says that the vulnerability was reported by Nguyen Huang Tech and Billy Zheng Bing Zhong, working with Trend Micro's zero-day initiative, even though it says earlier that it was reported by Orange Tsai from DevCore. Apple has released emergency security patches to address two zero-day vulnerabilities actively exploited to hack iPhones, iPads, and Macs. The first zero-day, tracked as CVE 2022-22674, is an out-of-bounds read issue that resides in the Intel graphics driver that could allow malicious apps to read kernel memory. An out-of-bounds read issue may lead to the disclosure of kernel memory and was addressed with the improved input validation. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited, reads the advisory published by the IT Giant. The second flaw, tracked to CVE 2022-22675, is an out-of-bounds write issue. The first one was a read, this one's write. That affects the Apple AVD media decoder. The exploitation of the issue can lead to kernel memory, the reading of kernel memory that will enable apps to execute arbitrary code with kernel privileges. An application may be able to execute arbitrary code with kernel privileges, reads the advisory. An out-of-bounds write issue was addressed with improved bounds checking. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited. Both zero-day flaws were reported by anonymous researchers and Apple addressed them with the release of iOS 15.4.1, iPadOS 15.4.1, and macOS Monterey 12.3.1. Apple addressed them with improved input validation and bounds checking, respectively. Apple did not disclose any detail about the exploitation of the vulnerabilities in the wild. Users are recommended to immediately install these security updates as soon as possible. Apple addressed three other actively exploited vulnerabilities since January. In February, Apple has addressed a zero-day vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-22620 in the WebKit affecting iOS, iPadOS, macOS, and Safari. The flaw was a use after free issue that could be triggered by processing maliciously crafted web content, leading to arbitrary code execution. Then in January, the company addressed another two zero-day vulnerabilities tracked to CVE 2022-22587 and CVE 2022-22594, respectively. An attacker could have exploited the flaws to run arbitrary code on the vulnerable devices and track users' online activity in the web browser. Network encrypting vendor Zyxel has pushed security updates for a critical flaw tracked to CVE 2022-0342 with a CVSS score of 9.8 that affects some of its business firewall and VPN products. The vulnerability can be exploited to take control of the devices. Zyxel has released patches for products affected by the authentication bypass vulnerability. Users are advised to install them for optimal protection, reads the advisory published by Zyxel. An authentication bypass vulnerability caused by the lack of a proper access control mechanism has been found in the CGI program of some firewall versions. The flaw could allow an attacker to bypass the authentication and obtain administrative access of the device. The vulnerability was reported by Alessandro Scricia from Technical Service CERL and Roberto Garcia H. and Victor Garcia R. from Innotech Security. The vendor is recommending customers to install the firmware updates for optimal protection. Cybersecurity firm Trend Micro has addressed a high-severity security flaw tracked to CVE 2022-26871 in the Apex Central Product Management Console. The CVE 2022-26871 vulnerability is an arbitrary file upload issue. Its exploitation could lead to remote code execution. Patch release information published by the company states that the flaw resides in the file handling module. Trend Micro Apex Central is a web-based console that provides centralized management for Trend Micro products and services at the gateway, the mail server, file server, and corporate desktop levels. Administrators can use the policy management feature to configure and deploy product settings to managed products and endpoints. The Apex Central web-based management console provides a single monitoring point for antivirus and content security products and services throughout the network. This week, Trend Micro spotted threat actors attempting to exploit the vulnerability in the wild. The company did not provide technical details about the attacks or if the attack was successfully exploited. After Trend Micro disclosed the flaw, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, added this issue to its Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog. The U.S. agency ordered federal civilian agencies to address this flaw by April 21st, 2022. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Sophos has fixed an authentication bypass vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-1040 that resides in the user portal and web admin areas of Sophos Firewall. This should have probably been in the patches area, but I'm just going to leave it here anyway. The CVE 2022-1040 flaw received a CVSS score of 9.8 and impacts Sophos Firewall versions 18.5 MR3 or 18.53 and earlier. A remote attacker with access to Firewall's user portal or web admin interface can exploit the flaw to bypass authentication and execute arbitrary code. The security vendor pointed out that the hotfixes will be automatically installed on its devices by default. The company also recommends customers avoid exposing their user portal and web admin to WAN. The vulnerability was reported to the cybersecurity or the security firm by an unnamed security researcher via its bug bounty program. Sophos added that users of older versions of its firewall are required to upgrade to receive the latest protections and this fix. Malicious schemes linked to online stores are on the rise in 2022. Criminal gangs from China have been using copies of online stores of popular brands to target users all over the world and thereby trick victims. The targets of this massive campaign are online stores geolocated in different countries, including Portugal, France, Spain, Italy, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, among others. The campaign has been active since late 2020, but gained momentum in early 2022 with thousands of victims affected. Active domains behind the malicious online stores at the time of analysis, which was the 21st of March 2022, the shopping platforms are available on servers geolocated in the US, the Netherlands, and Turkey, according to Zoomai. 617 active shopping platforms were identified worldwide, with 562 being created in 2022 alone. The servers are located in 3 countries, as mentioned before, the USA, the Netherlands, and Turkey. However, other servers and online stores were also identified during the research. The complete list of IOCs with more than 1,000 malicious entries is provided by the originators of this particular article. A new campaign typically starts with the author setting up the malicious domain at the top of Google search through digital ads. As shown above, within the article, you just Google it. The Lefties clothing store is one of them. This was disseminated in Portugal in 2022. After some days, users were hit as the malicious URL appeared at the top of searches. In specific cases, social ads were also found on Instagram and Facebook social media platforms. The content of the malicious websites, which are clones of the official stores, are based on a static content management system and a PHP API that communicates with a MySQL cluster in the background. Some artifacts related to the static CMS can be found on a GitHub repository from criminals. In detail, criminals put some effort into developing a generic platform that could serve a mega operation at a large scale, where small tweaks of images and templates would allow the reuse of code for different online stores. Then all the observed stores use the same code with different templates according to the target brand. As mentioned, The store is also equipped with an API that communicates with a MySQL database cluster where all the victim's data is stored, including name, your first and last name, complete address like street, zip code, city, and country, mobile phone, email, password, credit card information, including the number, date, and CVV, and details about the order and tracking code of some package. As usual, this personally identifiable information can be utilized later by criminals to leverage other kinds of campaigns. In addition, the middleware websites hosted on another domain receive the payment data during the payment process and try to complete the online transaction, meaning rip money out of your credit card on several online payment systems such as Stripe. If the transaction is successfully completed, the response message from the payment system is sent to the middleware platform responsible for sending the HTTP response back to the fake online store that's executing the payment transaction. After that, a tracking code is sent to the victim in order to follow the package. Now, the package tracking platform was also created by the criminals, and it is embedded as part of a legitimate platform, 17track.net. Now, this whole process is aimed at creating a fully controlled scenario and very close to a legitimate system. But in the end, the victim will actually receive a package, but not with clothes in it, just garbage. Ukraine's CERT UA uncovered a spear phishing campaign conducted by Belarus-linked GhostWriter APT group targeting Ukrainian state entities with Cobalt Strike Beacon. The phishing messages use a RAR archive named saboteurs.rar, which contains RAR archive saboteurs 21.03.rar. The second archive contains SFX archive saboteurs files file RCS, Experts reported that the file name contains the right to left override character to mask the real extension. The archive contains documents and images of the bait, as well as a VB script code, or thumbs.db file, which will create and run the .NET program DHDHK0K34.com, reads the advisory published by CERT UA. The attack chain ends with the delivery of a malicious program, Cobalt Strike Beacon. The date of the compilation for the injector, which is inject.exe, is March 15, 2022. The attribution of the campaign to the GhostWriter APT, or aka UIC0051 or UNC1151, is based on the code of the VB script itself that's used in the attack. In November 2021, Mondial threat intelligence researchers linked the GhostWriter disinformation campaign, aka UNC1151, to the government of Belarus. In August 2020, going back further, security experts from FireEye uncovered a disinformation campaign aimed at discrediting NATO by spreading fake news content on compromised news websites. According to FireEye, the campaign tracked as GhostWriter has been ongoing since at least March 2017 and is aligned with Russian security interests. Unlike other disinformation campaigns, GhostWriter doesn't spread through social networks. Instead, threat actors behind this campaign abused compromised content management systems of news websites or spoofed email accounts to disseminate fake news. The operators behind GhostWriter targeted Belarusian entities before 2020 elections. Some of the individuals, representatives of the Belarusian opposition, targeted by the nation-state actor, were later arrested by the Belarusian government. Sensitive technical information gathered by the researchers suggests the threat actors were operating from Minsk, Belarus, under the control of the Belarusian military. On Friday, Anonymous announced that the affiliate group Black Rabbit World has leaked 28 gigabytes of data stolen from the Central Bank of Russia. The group plans to distribute the stolen documents to various points on the internet to prevent that they get censored. Twitter plays a crucial role in the communication of the group. Many groups affiliated with the collective use this platform to share news about their operations. Anonymous claims that the @OpsAnon account was suspended by Twitter, likely to prevent the spreading of data stolen from the Central Bank of Russia or information related to other attacks conducted by the collective. It seems that the platform also blocked other accounts, but at the time of this writing, there is no official announcement from Twitter. Twitter CTO Parag Agrawal recently remarked that it will not allow any post that violates the terms of use of the platform, which makes sense, for example, by leaking personal information of individuals. Anyway, the data exfiltrated during the anonymous #OpRussia operation, including the info stolen from the Central Bank of Russia, is available through the leak site DDoS Secrets. Anonymous NB65 group also claimed to have hacked all Russia's state television and radio broadcasting company, which is VGTRK, which is one of the accused companies to be propaganda vector or arm of Putin. VGTRK is one of the world's largest media conglomerates. It owns networks of federal TV channels like Russia 1, Russia 24, Russia Planet, Russia Culture, and so on. It owns radio and a network of regional branches. Data exfiltrated from GGTRK, All Russia State Television and Radio Broadcasting Company, have been already shared with DDoS secrets that will release them in the near future. Muhstik is a botnet that is known to use web application exploits to compromise IoT devices. It has been around since at least 2018. Botnet operators monetize their efforts via XMRig combined with DDoS for higher services. The botnet leverages IRC servers for command and control communications. Experts noticed that it has consistently used the same infrastructure since it first appeared in the threat landscape. The bot propagates by compromising home routers, but experts observed multiple attempted exploits for Linux server propagation. The list of targeted routers included GPON home router, DDWRT router, and the Tomato router. The bot includes exploits for Oracle WebLogic Server Vulnerability CVE 2019-2725 and CV 2017-10271, and the Drupal RCE flaw tracked to CVE 2018-7600. Now, researchers from Juniper Threat Labs observed the Muhstik botnet exploiting the CVE 2022-0543 Lua Sandbox escape flaw that impacts Debian and Debian-derived Linux distributions. Juniper Threat Labs has uncovered an attack that targets Redis servers using a recently disclosed vulnerability named CVE 2022-0543. This vulnerability exists in some Redis Debian packages. The attack started on March 11, 2022 from the same threat actor we've seen targeting Confluent servers back in September 2021 and the same group targeting Log4j back in December, reads the analysis published by Juniper. The payload used is a variant of Muhstik bot that can be used to launch DDoS attacks. The vulnerability, which was rated 10 out of 10 for severity, could be exploited by a remote attacker with the ability to execute arbitrary Lua scripts to possibly escape the Lua sandbox and execute arbitrary code on the underlying machine. The attacks exploiting the CVE 2022-0543 vulnerability started on March 11, 2022. The attackers were attempting to fetch the malicious script russia.sh using wget curl from some IP address. It saves it as s/temp/rus and executes it. Now, experts pointed out that the vulnerability is not related to Redis. Instead, it existed because the Lua library and some Debian Ubuntu packages is provided as a dynamic library. Ubuntu Bionic and Trusty are not affected. Upon initializing the Lua interpreter, the package variable is automatically populated, and it, in turn, permitted access to arbitrary Lua functionality. The Hive ransomware operation has developed a Rust version of their encryptor and added new features to prevent curious researchers from snooping on the victim's ransom negotiations. According to Bleeping Computer, which focused on Linux VMware ESXi encryptor, the Hive ransomware operators have updated their encryptor by introducing features that were implemented in the past by the Black Cat, also known as Alpha ransomware operation. The Black Hat ransomware gang, unlike other ransomware operations, removed Tor negotiation URLs from their encryptor to prevent third parties from accessing the negotiation page and interfering in the communication between the victims and the gang. The URL in the Black Hat's approach is passed as a command line argument when the encryptor is executed. In previous infections of Hive ransomware, victims were asked to connect to the negotiation page by using login credentials assigned to them and that were previously stored in the encryptor executable. This was to store credentials represented with this storing of credentials represented a weakness in the negotiation process. Anonymous continues its offensive against Russia. The collective announced the hack of the Russian construction company Rostprojekt and announced a leak that will blow Russia away. The hacktivists have leaked 2.4 gigabytes of emails allegedly stolen from the Russian construction company. Anonymous also hacked Mash Oil and leaked the data through DDoS secrets. The dump includes nearly 140,000 emails from Mash Oil, which designs, manufactures, and maintains equipment used in the drilling, mining, and fracking industries. Anonymous claims that it is currently working on another data leak that could have a devastating impact on the Russian government. Anonymous has promised on upcoming glamorous dumps. It also launched a new site, Anonymous Leaks, to host future leaks. International Business Times had the opportunity to talk to Anonymous, and when we pried on the content of the leaked emails, the collective hinted that one guy did say he might have found malware sent to FSB agents, reported International Business Times. On March 29, 2022, a massive cyber attack caused a major internet disruption across Ukraine on national provider Ukrtelecom. According to global internet monitor service NetBlock, real-time network data showed connectivity collapsed to 13% of pre-war levels. The attack caused the most severe destruction observed since the invasion of the country by Russia. Today, the enemy launched a powerful cyber attack against Ukrtelecom's IT infrastructure, reads a statement issued by the State Service of Special Communications and Information Protection, known as SSCIP, of Ukraine. Yuri Shihol, chairman of the State Service of Special Communication and Information Protection, announced that the attack was foiled and that the company resumed its services. Malware Hunter team researchers discovered the malicious script that was infecting WordPress websites on a compromised WordPress website. When the users were visiting the website, the script launched a DDoS attack against 10 Ukrainian sites. The JavaScript was designed to perform thousands of HTTP GET requests to the targeted sites. The only evidence of the ongoing attack is the slowing down of the browser performance. According to Bleeping Computer, which first reported the discovery, DDoS attacks targeted pro-Ukrainian sites and Ukrainian government agencies, including think tanks, recruitment sites for the International Legion of Defense of Ukraine, and financial sites. The script generates random requests to avoid that they are served through a caching service. Bleeping Computer discovered that the same script is being used by the pro-Ukrainian site to launch attacks against Russian websites. When visiting the site, users' browsers are used to conduct a DDoS attack on 67 Russian websites, according to Bleeping Computer. Threat actors have stolen almost $625 million in Ethereum and USDC, a US dollar pegged stablecoin, tokens from Axie Infinity's Ronin network bridge. The attack took place on March 23rd, but the cyber heist was discovered a couple days ago after a user was unable to withdraw 5,000 Ether. The Ronin network is an Ethereum-linked sidechain used for the blockchain game Axie Infinity. The attackers have stolen roughly 173,600 Ether and 25.5 million USDC. The Ronin bridge and Katana decks have been halted following the attack. Axie Infinity disclosed the security breach through the official Discord and Twitter accounts and by Ronin Network. There has been a security breach on the Ronin Network. Earlier today, we discovered that on March 23rd, Sky Mavis's Ronin validator nodes and Axie DoE validator nodes were compromised, resulting in 173,600 Ethereum and 25.5 million USDC drained from the Ronin bridge in 2 transactions. The attacker used hacked private keys in order to forge fake withdrawals. We discovered the attack this morning after a report from a user being unable to withdraw 5,000 Ethereum from the bridge. The amount of stolen funds makes this attack the largest crypto hack in history, passing the 611 million hack of the DeFi protocol Poly network in August 2021. And if you remember, I did an episode on that hack, and the hacker actually gave most of the money, or I think all of it, back. Sky Mavis's Ronin chain is currently composed of 9 validator nodes. In order to confirm transactions, 5 out of the 9 validator signatures are needed. The threat actors managed to get control over 5 of the validator signatures. Sky Mavis's 4 Ronin validators and a third-party validator run by Axie DoE. The validator key scheme is set up to be decentralized so that it limits an attack vector, similar to this one. But the attacker found a backdoor through our gas-free RPC node, which they abused to get the signature of the Axie DoE validator. The Lapsus extortion group claims to have hacked IT Giant Globant and leaked roughly 70 gigabytes of stolen data. The gang claims that the company has implemented poor security practices that allow them to hack their infrastructure. For anyone who is interested about the poor security practices in use at globant.com, I will expose the admin credentials for all their DevOps platforms below, reads the message published on the Telegram channel of the Lapsus group. According to the gang, the stolen data includes customer source code and published a list of credentials to access source code sharing platforms used by the company, including GitHub, Jira, Crucible, and Confluence. The hack of Globant comes a few days after the City of London police announced to have arrested 7 teenagers suspected of being members of the notorious Lapsus extortion gang, which is believed to be based in South America. UK police suspected a 16-year-old from Oxford as one of the leaders of the popular Lapsus extortion gang. The U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency and the Department of Energy published joint guidance on mitigating cyber attacks against uninterruptible power supply devices, known as UPSs. The U.S. agencies warn of threat actors gaining access to a variety of internet-connected, uninterruptible power supply devices by exploiting default credentials. UPS devices provide clean and emergency power in a variety of applications when normal input power sources are interrupted for various reasons. The guidance recommends organizations immediately enumerate all UPSs and similar systems and ensure they're not accessible from the internet. In the case where a UPS device must be accessible online, organizations are recommended to implement the following controls. Ensure the devices are accessible through a virtual private network. Enforce multi-factor authentication. Use strong password or passphrases in accordance with the National Institute of Standards and technical guidelines for a humorous explanation of the password string. Check out the XKCD 936. CISA recommends checking if organizations' UPS credentials are still set to the factory default and changing them, of course, if they are. SonicWall has released security updates to address its critical vulnerability, CVE 2022-22274, that impacts multiple firewall appliances that could be exploited by an unauthenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary code and trigger a denial of service condition. The CVE 2022-22274 is a stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability in Sonic OS. It was discovered by the security researcher Zitong Wang from HatLab. A stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability in Sonic OS via HTTP request allows a remote, unauthenticated attacker to cause denial of service or potentially result in code execution in the firewall, reads the advisory published by SonicWall. SonicWall PSIRT revealed that it is not aware of attacks in the wild exploiting this vulnerability. SonicWall PSIRT is not aware of attack exploitation in the wild. No reports of a POC have been made public, and malicious use of this vulnerability has not been reported to SonicWall. Muhstik Labs recently discovered the Mars Stealer that was spreading masqueraded as malicious software cracks and keygens. The Mars Stealer is available for sale on several underground forums. Researchers pointed out that it is under constant development. The malicious code was offered for only $160 for a lifetime subscription. That's a steal! The malicious code allows stealing user credentials stored in various browsers, as well as many different cryptocurrency wallets. Researchers discovered that threat actors released a cracked version of the Mars Stealer along with a guide that tricked its users into improperly configuring it, allowing them to access their data. Stolen data was then offered for sale on cybercrime marketplaces. Gee, you think? Not long after the Mars Stealer's release, a cracked version was released with an instruction document. This guide has some flaws. One flaw instructs users to set up full access with 777 CH mode to the whole project, including the victim's logs directory, reads the analysis published by Muhstik. Whoever released a cracked Mars Stealer without official support has led threat actors to improperly configure their environment, exposing critical assets to the world. The malware is based on the Axie Stealer, and it was first spotted in June 2021. The malware targets multiple cryptocurrency wallets. The most stolen plugin using Mars Stealer is the crypto wallet MetaMask, followed by Coinbase. Most of the victims are students, faculty members, and content makers looking for legitimate applications who end up with tainted ones instead. Threat actors used Google ads to trick victims searching for the original software into visiting a malicious site instead. They used stolen information to pay advertising campaigns. The researchers discovered that threat actors compromised their own system with the Mars Stealer while debugging. Researchers were able to analyze the operation by looking at the attacker's own stolen information, including screenshots, passwords, history, system information, etc. The information revealed by the bad OPSEC allowed Muhstik to analyze the Mars Stealer to and link it to a Russian national. Researchers disclosed a zero-day vulnerability dubbed Spring 4 Shell in the Spring Core Java framework called Spring 4 Shell. An unauthenticated remote attacker could trigger the vulnerability to execute arbitrary code on the target system. The framework is currently maintained by Spring.io, which is a subsidiary of VMware. The Spring framework is an application framework and inversion of control container for the Java platform. The framework's core features can be used by any Java application, but there are extensions for building web applications on top of the Java EE or Enterprise Edition platform. The vulnerability was disclosed after a Chinese security researcher published a proof of concept exploit before deleting its account. The exploit code targeted a zero-day vulnerability in the Spring core module of the Spring framework. Spring is maintained by Spring.io, a subsidiary of VMware, and is used by many Java-based enterprise software frameworks, reported the analysis published by Rapid7. The vulnerability in the leaked proof of concept, which appeared to allow unauthenticated attackers to execute code on target devices, has since been deleted. The flaw has yet to be patched and impacts Spring Core on Java Development Kit versions 9 and later. The vulnerability is a bypass for another vulnerability tracked to CVE 2010-1622. Rapid7 researchers pointed out that the vulnerability and proof of concept could be triggered only when a specific function is used. The exploit code released by the Chinese researchers is not related to a completely different unauthenticated RCE flaw that was published on March 29th, 2022 for Spring Cloud. Proof of concept exploits exist, but it's currently unclear which real-world applications use the vulnerable functionality. Configuration and JRE version may also be significant factors in exploitability and the likelihood of widespread exploitation, continues Rapid7. The analysis of the flaw suggests that its impact may not be severe or as severe like other issues, for example, Log4j. Anonymous, again, continues to target Russian organizations and private foreign businesses that are still operating in Russia. The Popular Collective claims to have hacked the Russian investment firm Sophos Corp, which is owned by the oligarch Zakhar Smushkin. The hacktivists have stolen thousands of internal email and shared it with the data leak platform DDoS Secrets. At this time, 5,500 emails from Sophos Corp were available online, some of them containing sensitive information about deals and investments of the firm. 5,500 emails from Sophos Corp, a Russian investment firm owned by Zakhar Smushkin, number 2,674 on Forbes' billionaire list, which is involved in the project to build the Yuzhny satellite city in St. Petersburg, states DDoS Secrets, one of the largest development projects in Russia. It was approved by the Russian government as a priority investment as part of the 2020 strategy and receives government support. Again, anonymous to threaten international businesses that are still active in Russia and Belarus. Recently, Canadian oilfield services company Calfrac Well Services has suspended investments in the country, canceled the supply of equipment, while Decathlon announced the closure of its stores in Russia. However, in this tumultuous context, there is a high risk that some threat actors could abuse the name of Anonymous to carry out attacks never launched by the collective and conduct false flag operations. Recently, the Russian Civil Aviation Authority, or Rosaviatsia, was hacked, and attackers wiped 65 terabytes worth of data from the agency's infrastructure. Anonymous quickly denied the hacking of the Russian Civil Aviation Authority that released a statement to blame the incident on the malfunctioning of the electronic document flow system and the lack of access to the internet. Bitdefender researchers discovered 3 security vulnerabilities in the popular WiseCam devices that can be exploited by threat actors to execute arbitrary code and access camera feeds. The 3 flaws reported by the security firm are an authentication bypass tracked as CVE 2019-9564, a stack-based buffer overflow tracked as CVE 2019-12266, which could lead to remote code execution, and an unauthenticated access to contents of the SD card. A remote attacker could exploit the CVE 2019-9564 flaw to take over the device, including turning on or off the camera. An attacker could chain the above issue with the CVE 2019-12266 flaw to access live audio and video feeds. The flaws were reported to WISE in May 2019. The company addressed the CVE 2019-9564 and 2019-12266 flaws in September 2019 and November 2020, respectively. The vendor addressed the unauthenticated access to the content of the SD card with the release of firmware updates on January 29, 2022. According to experts, there are 3 versions of WiseCam devices on the market, and the first one has been discontinued and will not receive security updates to address these flaws. Security researchers at Sentinel Labs have spotted a previously undetected destructive wiper tracked as acid rain that hit routers and modems and that was suspected to be linked to the Viasat CASSAT attack that took place on February 24, 2022. Viasat revealed that a cyber attack hit its CASSAT network, making thousands of modems across Europe unreachable. Company experts noticed that the malicious code issued destructive commands to overwrite key data in flash memory on the modems, rendering the modems unable to access the network but not permanently unusable. Viasat and SkyLogic began to observe a gradual decline in the number of modems online in the same commercial-oriented partition. This gradual decline of connected modems continued until approximately 4:15 UTC, when Viasat and SkyLogic observed larger numbers of modems across much of Europe exiting the network over the course of about 45 minutes. All of these modems are serviced by the same consumer-oriented services partition, reads a statement issued by Viasat to describe the attack. Ultimately, tens of thousands of modems that were previously online and active dropped off the network, and these modems were not observed attempting to re-enter the network. The attack impacted a majority of the previously active modems within Ukraine and a substantial number of additional modems in other parts of Europe. 5,800 Enercon wind turbines in Germany were unreachable due to the spillover from this attack. According to the experts, acid rain is an ELF MIPS malware specifically designed to wipe modems and routers. The preliminary Viasat incident report posits the following requirements. It could be published via the cassette management segment onto modems en masse. It would overwrite key data in the modem's flash memory. It would render the devices unusable, in need of a factory reset or replacement, but not permanently unusable. Read the analysis published by Sentinel-1. Anonymous continues to target Russian firms owned by oligarchs. Yesterday, the collective, or earlier this week, the collective announced the hack of the Thozis Corp, while today, or earlier this week, the group claimed the hack of the Marathon Group. The Marathon Group is a Russian investment firm owned by oligarch Alexander Vinokurov, who was sanctioned by the EU. Vinokurov is the son-in-law of Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. The group breached the systems of the company and released 62,000 emails, a 52-gigabyte archive, through DDoS secrets. Anonymous also claimed the hack of a website of the government of Belarus related to the economy of Volozhin, a Belarusian city in the Minsk region. We move on to GitLab. CVE 2022-1162 vulnerability in GitLab is related to the set of hard-coded static passwords during OmniAuth-based registration in GitLab CE and EE. A hard-coded password was set for accounts registered using an OmniAuth provider, like, for example, OAuth, LDAP, SAML, in GitLab CE and EE versions 14.7 prior to 14.77, 14.8 prior to 14.85, 14.9 prior to 14.92, allowing attackers to potentially take over accounts. This is a critical severity issue. Read the advisory published by GitLab. We strongly recommend that all installations running a version affected by the issues described below are upgraded to the latest version as soon as possible. The bug was addressed with the latest release of versions 14.92, 14.85, 14.77 for GitLab Community Edition and Enterprise Edition. The company also announced the password reset of an unspecified number of users as a precautionary measure. The Mirai-based distributed denial-of-service botnet Beastmode, aka B3est mode, now includes exploits for total link routers. Like most DDoS botnets, Beastmode attempts to infect other devices by launching brute force attacks or exploiting multiple vulnerabilities. Between February and March 2022, researchers from the FortiGuard Labs team observed Beastmode operators adding 5 new exploits in a few weeks, with 3 targeting some total link routers. The threat actors added total link exploits just a week after the exploit codes were publicly released on GitHub, in the attempt to compromise the largest number of devices as possible before the owners upgrade to the latest firmware releases. Total Link has already addressed these flaws with the release of new firmware for vulnerable devices. The Beastmode botnet also includes exploits for the following issues. CVE 2021-45382 targets D-Link products. CVE 2021-4045 targets TP-Link TAPO C200 IP cameras. CVE 2017-17215 targets Huawei HD532 routers. CVE 2016-5674 targets Nuo, NVRAM Mini 2s, NVR Solos, Crystal devices, and Netgear Ready NAS surveillance products. Once devices are infected by the Beastmode bot, the botnet can perform a variety of DDoS attacks, including attack app HTTP, attack TCP ACK, attack TCP SYN, attack UDP plane, attack UDP VSE, attack UDP OVH hex, attack UDP STD hex, and attack UDP clamp. So, UK police charged 2 teenagers for their alleged role in the Lapsus extortion group. The duo has been released on bail after appearing in the Highbury Corner Magistrates Court on Friday. The City of London police charged 2 of the 7 teenagers recently arrested by the UK police for their alleged membership of the Lapsus extortion gang. UK police suspect that a 16-year-old from Oxford is one of the leaders of the popular Lapsus gang. Over the last months, the Lapsus gang compromised many prominent companies such as Nvidia, Samsung, Ubisoft, Mercado Libre, Vodafone, Microsoft, Okta, and Globant. The hack of Globant was announced after the arrest of the 7 teenagers on March 30th, which means that other members of the gang are still operating under the Lapsus brand. The FBI added the gang to the list of most wanted criminals and is asking the public for assistance in an investigation involving the compromise of computer networks belonging to United States-based technology companies. Again with Anonymous, continuing to target Russian government entities and private businesses. They attacked the Thozis Corp and Marathon Group owned by oligarchs. Now the collective announced the hack of the Russian Orthodox Church's charitable wing and leaked 15 gigabytes of data along with 57,000 emails. The collective leaked the data through DDoS Secrets platform, but clarified that due to the nature of the stolen information, at this time it's only being offered to journalists and researchers. We now move on to other security news. The U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, added Google Chrome Zero-Day CV 2022-1096 and a critical Redis vulnerability CV 2022-0543 we talked about earlier in this episode, along with another 30 vulnerabilities to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. According to Binding Operation Directive, known as BOD 2201, reducing the significant risk of unknown exploitable vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. Experts recommend also that private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. The new vulnerabilities added to the catalog have to be addressed by federal agencies by April 18, 2022, which is not 100% correct because I think the one for the Redis was given a date of April 21st or 22nd. Last week, Google fixed the actively exploited CV 2022-1096 zero-day vulnerability with the release of Chrome 99.0.4844.84 for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now, Google again released that Chrome 99.0.4844.84 for Windows, Linux, and Mac to address the flaw. The CV 2022-1096 vulnerability is a type confusion in V8 JavaScript engine. The bug was reported by an anonymous researcher on March 23rd. The second issue added to the catalog track to CV 2022-0543 again is this Lua sandbox escape flaw that's everybody's saying it's a Redis flaw that impacts Debian and Debian-derived Linux distributions. The vulnerability, which is rated 10 out of 10 for severity, could be exploited by a remote attacker with the ability to execute arbitrary Lua scripts to possibly escape the Lua sandbox and execute arbitrary code on the underlying machine. Juniper Threat Labs researchers reported that the Muhstik botnet has been observed targeting Redis servers, exploiting exactly that CV 2022-0543 vulnerability. On March 27th, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency added 66 new flaws to its Known Exploitable Vulnerabilities Catalog. One of the 66 flaws added to the catalog is the recently discovered Windows CVE 2022-21999 vulnerability, which is a Windows print spooler elevation of privilege bug. Microsoft addressed this bug with the release of the February 22 Patch Tuesday updates. Another issue added to the catalog track to CV 2022-26318 is an arbitrary code execution in WatchGuard Firebox and XTM appliances. The CISA catalog has reached a total of 602 entries with the latest added vulnerabilities. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry's Directorate of Intelligence has leaked the alleged personal data of 620 Russian FSB officers. Personal details leaked by the Ukrainian body include names, phone numbers, addresses, vehicle license plates, SIM cards, date and location of birth, signatures, and passport numbers. The list was shared on the official website of the Directorate of Intelligence. The Ukrainian Directorate states that employees of the FSB of Russia involved in the criminal activities of their aggressor state in Europe. According to the announcement, all the officers included in the list are registered as residents in Moscow, St. Bolshaya Lubyanka, which is the headquarters of the FSB. The announcement of the leak also states that every European should know their names. Andrew Barrett, Vice President of Cybersecurity Advisory Services Coalfire, told InfoSecurity that the leak could provide Putin with false flag cover to target unfaithful Russian intelligence agents. There is a potential now for escalation against the Russian FSB agents whose data has been leaked, also demonstrating the asymmetry that can be established by aggressively targeting cyber attacks, said Barrett. Barrett warned that the apparent leakage of FSB officers' personal data could provide Russia with false flag cover and give the Putin administration an excuse for domestic action taken against FSB members who may have been sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride!